Hey book nerds, welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to talk about the top 5 books that I would like to reread, not necessarily in 2019, but probably in 2019, so kind of like just books that I want to reread soon. I already did a list of like books that I want to reread, which I'll link down below, but that was more of like general books that I would like to reread at some point, whereas this is specific books that I have a strong urge to reread now. The first book that I'd like to talk about is Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. This is the only one of the Wayward Children series that I've read. I read it 2 years ago now, and I was really disappointed by it. I do intend to read the rest of the series, but at this point I can't even remember the first one, which is one of the reasons that I do want to reread it. The main reason that I was disappointed with it, I think, is that it was a very different story to what I was expecting. It's kind of like a murder mystery, which you think would be more up my street, but like it wasn't really a fantasy story exploring what happens to children once they leave these mystical worlds, which is what I thought it was going to be. But yeah, I want to give this a second chance because now that I know what kind of book it is, I feel like I'll enjoy it a lot more. And loads of people seem to really love this book, and I think it was really good, and I like Seanan McGuire's writing, so hopefully the second time round I might like it a lot more. Next book I want to talk about is Frozen Charlotte by Alex Bell. This is a horror book for young adult readers, so it's actually really scary from what I remember. It was scarier than I thought it'd be, especially because I heard about it from Zoella, which is really embarrassing, but this was like 2-3 years ago now. And I did used to watch Zoella, but she did like a book club, and her first, I think it's completely different now, but when she first did the book club, she'd actually read all the books and she was really excited about all the books. Frozen Charlotte is about a house. These kids go to stay in a house with a relative, and this house is full of dolls, like China dolls, and the dolls start moving, and there's like some kind of, their cousin's really creepy. There's a lot of creepy stuff going on. I don't remember it that well, but I do remember loving it. I really want to reread this because I've read a lot more horror since reading that, and I want to see A, if it stands up, and B, if it's like as scary as I remember it being, because I remember it being quite scary, and I don't usually get scared by books. The next book I might have talked about in my other video, but that is Invisible Monsters by Chuck Palahnuik. This is so hard to explain. I absolutely loved this book. I've read it almost 5 years ago now, and you kind of can't talk what it's about, but it's about a model whose face gets ruined, but it's not really about that. It's, yeah, I can't really phrase what it's about. It's more of a intense story. If you have the remix version, which I do, it's all told out of order, which is part of the story, and that's how it was originally intended to be published. It was only through publishers meddling that it got published in chronological order. But it's like a choose your own adventure kind of book, sort of. There's not many, if any, choices. I don't really remember, but I don't think you actually make choices, but you turn to certain pages and there's sections that you don't encounter normally, so when you're done you can kind of flick through and find bits that add more to the story that you didn't encounter when you actually read it the way you were meant to. I just remember it being really intense. It had a really brutal writing style, but it was kind of beautiful, even though it was really graphic. Yeah, I can't really say much more about it apart from that, but I really want to reread it because it was one of the first kind of adult books that I read in the mindset of I'm going to read books and start judging them and writing blog posts about them and all that kind of stuff. So I want to see now if 5 years later I still love it as much as I did then, now that I'm a slightly more seasoned reader. And the last two are both thrillers, and the first one is Final Girls by Riley Sager. I've already talked about this at one point, I think, but I remember literally nothing about this thriller pretty much. I know that it's about a woman who survived a horrible serial killer when she was a teenager. She was the only survivor, and there was 2, I think, other girls who survived different incidents by different serial killers, and the press has started calling them final girls because of the whole horror movie trope where there's always a final girl who will survive and win the story. But then someone starts murdering the final girls, or they start dying under mysterious circumstances. That's all I remember about the plot, and I do vaguely remember the ending, which obviously I'm not going to talk about now. But again, it was one of the ones I was slightly disappointed by. I read a lot of thrillers, and Riley Sager's really hyped up. But I read The Last Time I Lied more recently, and I enjoyed that quite a lot, and I remember that one a lot better. So I want to reread Final Girls because, again, it was about 2 years ago when I read it, and I feel like it's hyped so much that I want to see if I love it more the second time, if it sticks with me more as well, because it's pretty bad that I don't remember much about it. But I think I gave it a higher rating. I'm pretty sure I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, so maybe on the reread it will solidify what rating I actually want to give it. And the final book is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. This, again, I remember literally nothing about, and this is nothing. I've read the blurb, and I know it's about a woman who is on a cruise, and the person in the cabin next to hers she sees like a woman go overboard or something, but when she goes to investigate, everyone says that cabin was empty. That's literally all I remember about it. I love Ruth Ware. I've read all of her books now. The Death of Mrs. Westaway is my favourite. And this is currently what I'd say is my least favourite because of the fact that I don't remember anything about it. But Ruth Ware is a fantastic writer, and I really want to reread this. My mum is reading Ruth Ware at the moment, and I would like to read this at the same time as her, because she's never read it before, and I've basically never read it before, so it'll be interesting to like do a buddy read with my mum. That's what cool people do, right? So anyway, yeah, that is all 5 books that I would like to reread at some point in 2019, probably at the very least early 2020, depending on what happens. But yeah, let me know if you've read any of these, if you've reread any of these, if you've got books that you want to reread, let me know what they are, because that'll be interesting to see. And also what makes you want to reread a book, because I don't reread very often because my TBR list is so long, so it only tends to be books that I loved that I've reread currently, but these are all not necessarily books I've loved, so I've kind of changed up my criteria a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see what other people's criteria is. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Do give me a thumbs up if you like this video, it helps me out massively, and I hope to see you next time.